So last week is we were interviewing Michael D'Antuono, great visual. He's a painter and has done some very controversial paintings of a lot of Trump on a lot of resistance issues. And the iconic artist Ron English, who is a fan of Michael's,
Sure.
called him the Rockwell of the Resistance.
That's
And
a good one.
it's a good
Very
one.
good one. Yeah.
And it's accurate. It's really very clever and very good. And Michael, to his credit, has taken that to the bank, so to speak. He uses that quote on a relatively regular basis. But I know that you've been referred to as the father, perhaps the godfather, the wicked stepfather of punk music, American punk. Do you have a preference of your moniker there out there in famous land?
Well, now that you mention it, I'm pretty partial to Wicked Stepfather. But I guess you would call me the great great grandfather.
Of American punk music?
Because I was like rolling pretty hard on the punk types of ideas, even in the late 60s and early 70s. When all the hippies were growing their hair, I got mad at my dad, so I shaved mine and painted an American flag on my head. And, it was always like bands like Blue Cheer and Iggy that influenced me, and Captain Beefheart, which, as it turns out, my friend Don sorry about that, Don Bowles and I are making a movie about punk called Inside Punk, and it turns out that that was a pretty common influence. Dada was one of the strongest influences on early punkers. So, way back then I was the opposite of anti, whatever that is.
I don't know. I missed it. But and when did you start working with the Dead Kennedys? Did you started with them at the beginning?
Pretty much, I got a chance. Darby Crash of the Germs gave me, my first kind of tap on the shoulder and said, "Well, you're a producer, produce us." That was at the Mask, Hollywood's like sort of legendary underground cesspool, and so I did the Germs record for Slash magazine, which became Slash Records, which eventually ended up on Warner's Records. So right after that, I was, kind of popular because people liked that record. And very quickly in succession after that, I got to do the Dead Kennedys, Holiday in Cambodia, which went huge, especially in England. And then I got to do Black Flag and the Bags and the Deadbeats. And it just went from there. And I'm still doing that.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Where were the Dead Kennedys out of? Were they Northern
They
California?
were they were San Francisco, and I remember I used to roadie for a band called the Screamers, which unfortunately kind of got lost in the sands of time. But they, are part of punk history in LA. They're a very good band, and I was their sound man and roadie. So we traveled all over, and I went up there one time with them. By that time, I had a band too, so I was playing, and the Dead Kennedys were playing as well. And I walked in to the Mabuhay Gardens, which was like San Francisco's, famous place, and I heard this thunderous sound coming out of the speakers, and I crept up to the front of the stage, and it was the Dead Kennedys. And I had remembered that I'd met them in like Zim's restaurant, which is kind of like Denny's, up there. And they were talking about how they wanted to start a band, and I was going, "These little college kids, I wonder if they can really do it, And then I said, "What are you going to call it?" They said, "The Dead Kennedys." I said, "Wow, that's a huge name. I wonder if they could ever live up to it." And as it turns out, they more than lived up to it.
Boy, I remember the Mabuhay so well. What was the woman who ran it? There was a Chinese woman who ran the Mabuhay. God,
Right. I rarely met her, but Dirk Dirksen was the one who ran the shows. And that guy was like, he was of the Don Rickles. In fact, I think they were friends. He was of the Don Rickles school of comedy, and very abrasive and very harsh. And I always thought he just like had a terrible, awful attitude. I hated him at first. And later on, I found out he was the sweetest man ever. He always paid the bands cash and right on time. And I mean, just like he became a really dear friend of mine.
yeah.
Actually, he's gone now, but he lived right across the street from who is that famous like Satanist Anton LaVey or something, or
Oh,
no, but from San Francisco though. Is that him? You, you
I
know,
know, I remember who you're talking about. How can you
look,
forget
look
that?
out Dirk. I would look out Dirk's window, and this place was like painted all black, had barbed wire all like wrapped around it. It was looked like a little hellhole.
Oh man. Yeah,
Not
the
Anger, not anti, maybe anti. There was another one perhaps, but anyways,
yeah, I remember the Mabuhay Gardens fondly. There was such a scene that was popping there in the punk days, just nonstop, man.
that was a good club. I spent a lot of time up there because bands would take me up there to mix their sets, and so I made very good friends with them. And there was a really strong video outfit up there called Target Video, and they were like years before the video boom. So Joe Reeves, who was the artist that was like the person responsible for that, he built a whole compound around video, and we got to go up there sometimes and shoot videos with the Screamers. Thank God, because otherwise there would be nothing from them. I got to do some videos with him, and there was a time when I was even considering moving up there because I loved what they were doing. That was a hot scene over there.
Indeed. You remember a band called The Visitors that were around then?
That sounds extremely familiar.
Yeah, they were on the they were playing around the same time.
There was one of what was the band that you got? The Mutants. Did you ever see the Mutants?
Yeah.
They were great.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
also had a song that was like, in any other perfect world, it would have been a hit song, but the record companies just weren't buying.
I remember seeing the Tubes at the
Oh my God, I saw the Tubes once too. Yeah,
Her name was Ness.
that's cool.
Yeah, we shared a rehearsal studio with them in San Francisco over in the off of DeHaro Street. And
They were so original.
That's the queen.
They were one of the first acts to really take the theatrics to like a high level.
oh yeah. Yeah.
While being a really good rock band.
Yeah, they were excellent. I remember I sort of screwed up though. I had a joke about Porsches. We didn't like Porsches, and I told it to Rick, their bass player. I hit him with a punchline, and he gave me this look, and I said to myself, "You don't think?" And Rick was like, "I have a Boxster, man." He was a Porsche. All right, that's about it for in talk.
Thanks. Catch you next time, buddy.
All right, kids, it's good to see you. Larva, it's good to see you.
Love you.
Love you too.
I just texted you.
Wow. Hi. Oh, yes, you did. All right, you guys. Talk to you soon.
Hey,
Bye-bye.
catch you later. I'm gonna shut it down.
Okay.